The crystal glasses clinked as Leonard Callahan raised his drink. To my son Glenn, who turned a small architectural firm into one of the city's most respected companies, his voice carried across Glenn Franklin's dining room, where family and friends gathered around the mahogany table. Glenn, seated at the head of the table, nodded in appreciation. At 34, he'd built his reputation brick by brick, just as he designed his buildings, with precision and unwavering dedication. His fiancée Sophia Hayes sat beside him, her diamond engagement ring catching the light of the chandeliers. And to Sophia, Leonard continued, his expression softening. In just a few days, you'll officially become part of our family. After losing Glenn's mother so young, it warms my heart to see him find such happiness. The guests raised their glasses in unison. Glenn squeezed Sophia's hand under the table, unaware of how she subtly tensed at his touch. I remember when Glenn was just starting, Leonard shared with the group. He'd work through nights, sketching designs on any scrap of paper he could find. Now look at him. The Franklin Architecture Group employs over 50 people. Dad, please, Glenn chuckled, but pride colored his voice. You're making me sound like some kind of workaholic. Because you are, darling, Sophia interjected, her tone playful but with an undercurrent of something else. Though I suppose that's what made you so successful. The conversation flowed freely as servers brought out the main course. Glenn had spared no expense for this pre-wedding dinner, though the upcoming ceremony would dwarf this gathering in both size and cost. Glenn insisted on donating a significant portion of last quarter's profits to the Children's Hospital, Leonard mentioned to the group. Just like his mother would have done. Sophia's smile remained fixed in place, but her fingers drummed against her thigh. The motion didn't escape Art Lindsay's notice. Glenn's childhood friend and private investigator observed the subtle reactions around the table with professional interest. While the guests enjoyed their meal, across town at Bergdorf's, a very different scene played out earlier that day. Sophia twirled in front of a mirror, her mother Marlene McElroy appraising her daughter's reflection. The wedding dress is divine, darling, Marlene cooed, though I still think we could have found something more exclusive in Paris. Sophia's perfectly manicured nails traced the beadwork. Glenn doesn't understand the importance of appearances. He thinks the local boutiques are perfectly fine. She spat the last words with unveiled contempt. At least his bank account understands, Marlene reminded her. Once you're married, you can educate him on proper taste. Or simply bypass his input altogether. The sales assistant approached with champagne, but Sophia waved her away. I can't wait for this charade to be over. Playing the adoring fiancée is exhausting. Just a few more days, Marlene soothed. Then you'll have access to everything you deserve. Later that evening, at Lou Bernardine, Sophia slipped into a private booth where Danny Connell waited. His rakish good looks and expensive watch marked him as exactly the type of man she truly desired. There's my girl, Danny murmured, pulling her close for a kiss. How was dinner with the architect? Sophia rolled her eyes, wiping her lips. Dreadful. Another evening of hearing about his humble beginnings and how hard he worked for everything. She mimicked Glenn's earnest tone. I swear, if I have to listen to one more story about his mother's charitable spirit. Danny traced patterns on her wrist. Think about the payoff, baby. Glenn's company alone is worth millions, not counting his personal assets. I know, Sophia sighed, leaning into him. But sometimes I wonder if we should have targeted someone less involved. He wants to know everything, where I'm going, who I'm meeting. It's suffocating. That's because he actually loves you, Danny smirked. Poor bastard has no idea what's coming. Their laughter mingled with the restaurant's ambient noise as they plotted their future. Neither noticed the couple 2 tables over, one of whom worked for Art Lindsay. The scene shifted to 3 years earlier, at the annual Children's Hospital Gala. Glenn stood near the bar, discussing a potential project with investors when Sophia entered the ballroom. Her emerald dress complemented her dark hair, and her practiced smile drew attention from across the room. Who is that? Glenn asked a colleague, unable to look away. Sophia Hayes. Her family used to have money, but I heard they lost most of it in bad investments. She works in art acquisitions now, I think. Glenn watched as she navigated the crowd with grace, stopping to chat with key donors. When their eyes met, she held his gaze for just a moment longer than necessary. By the end of the night, they had shared 2 dances and exchanged numbers. "I've never met anyone like you," Glenn had told her on their 3rd date, as they walked through the sculpture garden at the museum where she worked. "You understand both the artistic and business sides of my world." Sophia's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. "I was raised to appreciate beautiful things, Glenn, including ambitious men who create them." Present-day Glenn sat in his home office after the dinner party, reviewing wedding preparations. The guest list topped 300. The venue was the city's most exclusive hotel, and the honeymoon would take them through the finest resorts in the Mediterranean. He picked up a framed photo from his desk, himself and Sophia at a charity event, her head resting on his shoulder. His fingers traced her smile, remembering how she'd whispered "I love you" for the first time that night. "I don't deserve you," he murmured to the image, unaware of how prophetic those words would prove to be. In her own apartment, Sophia pulled out her phone to text Danny. 3 more days until I never have to pretend again." He's such a fool. Actually teared up when his father mentioned his dead mother tonight. Danny's response came quickly. "Just keep playing your part, baby. Soon we'll never have to hide again." The messages glowed in the darkness, digital proof of betrayal yet to be discovered. Chapter 2. The cracks appear. Glenn's office buzzed with activity as his team prepared presentations for their newest client, a luxury hotel chain expanding along the coast. He rubbed his temples, fighting fatigue from juggling work demands with wedding preparations. "Mr. Franklin?" His assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Lindsay is here to see you." Art Lindsay strode in, his casual demeanor at odds with the office's corporate atmosphere. "Looking rough, buddy. Wedding planning taking its toll?" Glenn managed a tired smile. "Try coordinating a 300-person event while designing a 30-story hotel. I'm running on coffee and willpower." Art settled into a chair, studying his friend. "You know, I've been meaning to ask about Sophia's guest list. Some interesting names there." Her mother insisted on inviting half the social register. Glenn shrugged. "Why?" "Professional curiosity." Art leaned forward. "A few of those names have crossed my desk before, not always in flattering contexts." "Come on, Art. Not everyone can be as squeaky clean as you and me." "I'm serious, Glenn. Something feels off. Maybe I should." "Don't." Glenn's tone carried a warning. "I know you're looking out for me, but Sophia's not some case to investigate. She's going to be my wife." Art raised his hands in surrender, but concern lingered in his eyes. "Just be careful, that's all I'm asking. You've worked too hard to build this life." Later that evening, Glenn remained at the office, reviewing contracts. Sophia had left her phone on his coffee table after stopping by for lunch. He barely noticed it until it buzzed with an incoming message. The screen lit up, Danny, with a heart emoji. Something in Glenn's chest tightened as he picked up the phone. The message preview showed clearly, "Don't worry, baby. His family's money is all we need. Once we're married, we'll make him disappear." Glenn's hands trembled as he opened the phone. Sophia had mentioned her passcode once, never thinking he'd need it. More messages filled the screen, each one a dagger to his heart. "Danny, you should see your place on his company board as a golden opportunity." "Sophia, trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing." Glenn's so desperate to make everyone happy, he never questions anything. "Danny, just think, a few more days and we can start moving pieces into place. The prenup won't matter once he's gone." The office seemed to shrink around Glenn as he read message after message. 3 years of memories replayed in his mind, each one now tainted by deception. His hands clenched into fists, knuckles white with rage. A text from Sophia herself appeared. "Left my phone at your office. Don't look at my surprise wedding plans." Winky face. Glenn set the phone down exactly as he'd found it. His face betrayed nothing as he typed a response from her phone. "Found it. Too busy with work to snoop. See you at dinner tomorrow. Love you." He sat in silence for several minutes, his mind racing through options. The ruthless businessman in him, the part he usually kept carefully contained, began to surface. If they wanted to play games with his life, he would show them what it meant to truly lose everything. Across town, at an upscale bar, Sophia and Danny occupied a secluded booth. Her fingers traced patterns on his chest as they talked. "I had to sit through another tedious dinner with his father," she complained. "All about Glenn's childhood and his precious mother's legacy. I thought I would scream." Danny captured her hand, kissing each finger. "You're a better actress than you give yourself credit for. Glenn doesn't suspect a thing, because he sees what he wants to see." Sophia's laugh held no warmth. "You should have heard him the other day, talking about having children. As if I'd ever carry his child." "Just stick to the plan," Danny reminded her. "Once you're married, we'll move carefully. No one will ever connect us to what happens to Glenn." "I almost feel sorry for him," Sophia mused, then grinned. "Almost." Neither noticed the man at the bar, one of Art's associates, recording their conversation on a specialized device. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. Glenn sat in his home study, surrounded by documents. Bank statements, property deeds, company shares, his entire financial empire laid bare. He began moving assets, creating new accounts, and shifting control structures. His phone buzzed, Art Lindsay requesting a meeting. Glenn had already decided to bring his old friend into his confidence. He needed Art's resources, and more importantly, his discretion. They met at Art's office, a modest space that belied his company's success in private investigation. "I need everything you can find on Sophia Hayes and Danny Connell," Glenn stated without preamble. "Every account, every connection, every skeleton in their closets." Art's expression remained neutral. "I was wondering when you'd ask. I've already started a preliminary investigation." Glenn's eyebrows rose. "You knew?" "I suspected. Certain patterns caught my attention. The way she isolates you from old friends, her sudden interest in company operations, her brother's gambling debts." "What gambling debts?" Art pulled out a file. "Toby Rice, that's her brother, owes significant money to some dangerous people. Started about 6 months before Sophia met you." Glenn absorbed this information, pieces clicking into place. She needed a solution to her family's financial problems, and you were it. Art hesitated. "There's more. Danny Connell isn't just her lover. He's been involved in multiple fraud schemes. Never convicted. But his name keeps appearing in cases of wealthy marks who lost everything. I want them destroyed." Glenn's voice carried deadly calm. "Not just stop destroyed. Can you help me? I'll need time to gather concrete evidence." "They're careful. They won't expect anything until after the wedding. We have time." Over the next few days, Glenn maintained his routine. He attended meetings, reviewed wedding details, and played the role of devoted fiancé. But beneath the surface, he was a man transformed. He documented every interaction with Sophia, recorded every call, saved every message. Each sweet nothing she whispered became evidence of her betrayal. Each time she touched him, he imagined her hands around his throat. At the rehearsal dinner, Glenn watched Sophia work the room. She charmed his business associates, laughed at his father's jokes, and played the perfect bride-to-be. Only now did he notice how her eyes constantly tracked exits and valuables. Leonard pulled his son aside during the evening. "Something's bothering you. What makes you say that?" "I raised you, Glenn. I know when you're calculating something behind those eyes." Glenn studied his father, the man who had taught him strength, who had shown him how to turn pain into power after his mother's death. "Dad, if someone betrayed you, betrayed everything we stand for, what would you do?" Leonard's expression hardened. "I'd make sure they never had the chance to do it again. To anyone." Glenn nodded, decision crystallizing. "I need your help. But first, I need to tell you what I discovered." As father and son talked in hushed tones, Sophia observed them from across the room. She nudged her brother Toby, who had already had too much to drink. "Keep an eye on them," she muttered. "Glenn's been distant lately." "You're paranoid," Toby slurred. "He worships you. That's what worries me." Men who worship women notice when their goddesses have feet of clay. The evening wound down, guests departing with excited chatter about the upcoming ceremony. Glenn kissed Sophia goodnight, tasting the lies on her lips. In his study later, he reviewed Art's latest findings. Sophia's debt problems ran deeper than suspected. Danny's criminal connections spread wider. The web of deceit had many strands, and Glenn intended to use each one to strangle their plans. He opened his safe, adding new evidence to his growing collection. Tomorrow, he would begin the final preparations. The wedding would proceed, but not as Sophia and Danny had planned. Glenn stood at his window, ice clinking in his glass. 3 years ago, he had been a different man, successful but soft, powerful but naive. Now he felt reborn in cold fury, stripped of illusions. They thought his money made him weak, that his love made him blind. They would learn that the same drive that built his empire could tear their world apart. The wedding was 2 days away. Soon, they would understand exactly who they had chosen to betray. Chapter 4. The Altar of Deception. The St. Regis Hotel buzzed with activity as hundreds of guests filed into the grand ballroom. White roses and orchids adorned each table, their fragrance mingling with anticipation in the air. Glenn Franklin adjusted his bow tie in the groom's suite, his expression unreadable as his father Leonard helped with his cufflinks. "You don't have to go through with this," Leonard said quietly. "We could end it now." Glenn shook his head. They need to feel secure, overconfident. When they fall, they'll fall in front of everyone they tried to impress. The door opened and Art Lindsay slipped in. "Everything's set. Detective Simpson and her team are in position, dressed as guests. Danny's here too, sitting near the back." "Perfect." Glenn checked his watch. "And the audio system?" "Tested twice. Crystal clear." Art hesitated. "You know she'll try to deny everything. Let her try." Glenn's voice carried steel beneath its calm surface. "I have enough evidence to bury them both." In the bridal suite, Sophia Hayes preened before the mirror as her mother Marlene fussed with her veil. The designer gown cost more than most people's cars, but Sophia had insisted on nothing less. "In a few hours, you'll be Mrs. Franklin," Marlene beamed. "All that wealth, all those opportunities. If you keep talking about it, someone might hear," Sophia snapped. She touched up her lipstick, practiced her innocent smile. "Where's Danny?" "Already seated, as planned. Toby's keeping watch." Marlene lowered her voice. "Are you sure about the timing? If something goes wrong." "Nothing will go wrong." Sophia's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Glenn's too besotted to suspect anything. Soon he'll give me everything I want, and then—" She drew a finger across her throat with a soft laugh. The wedding march began, and guests rose as the doors opened. Sophia glided down the aisle, a vision in white. Her smile remained fixed as she approached Glenn, who waited at the altar with appropriate adoration in his eyes. The priest began the ceremony, his words echoing through the ballroom. When he reached the crucial moment, he turned to Glenn. "Do you, Glenn Franklin, take Sophia Hayes to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Glenn met Sophia's gaze. "Actually," he said, his voice carrying clearly, "I have something I'd like to share first." Before Sophia could react, Glenn pulled out a small remote. The ballroom speakers crackled to life, and her own voice filled the air. "Don't worry, baby. His family's money is all we need. Once we're married, we'll make him disappear." The color drained from Sophia's face as more recordings played. Her conversations with Danny, discussing their plans, mocking Glenn's love, plotting his death, all laid bare before the stunned audience. "I've been collecting these for weeks," Glenn announced, his tone conversational but his eyes burning with controlled rage. "Would you like to hear the part where you and Danny planned how to access my accounts? Or perhaps the discussion about which poison would be hardest to trace?" Marlene swayed on her feet as her daughter's true nature was exposed. Danny tried to slip away but found his path blocked by 2 large men, Art's security team. "You see," Glenn continued, addressing the shocked guests, "Ms. Hayes and Mr. Connell have quite a history of targeting wealthy marks. But they made one crucial mistake." He stepped closer to Sophia, who backed away. "They chose someone who values loyalty above all else." Detective Susan Simpson emerged from the crowd, badge in hand. "Sophia Hayes, Danny Connell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and multiple other charges we'll be adding as we go." Chapter 5. Flight and Pursuit. Chaos erupted in the ballroom. Sophia's composure shattered as she screamed, "You're lying. He's making it all up." Toby Rice, face contorted with rage, launched himself at Glenn. "You bastard! I'll kill you." But Glenn's security team intercepted him smoothly, pinning him to the ground. In the confusion, Sophia's father appeared at her side. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a service entrance, an escape route they'd planned for a different scenario entirely. Danny, seeing his chance, broke away from the distracted security and followed. Glenn watched them flee, his expression unchanged. He turned to Art, who already had his phone out. "They're taking the east exit. Teams 2 and 3 are in position." But Sophia and her accomplices had prepared well. A car waited in the service alley, engine running. They piled in as shouts echoed behind them, Danny barely making it before the vehicle peeled away. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Danny panted in the back seat. "How did he know?" "Shut up." Sophia's mask of sophistication had vanished, replaced by feral desperation. "Just shut up and let me think." Her father navigated through back streets, avoiding main roads. "We need to get to the safe house. We can regroup there." "No," Sophia snapped. "They'll expect that. Head north, toward the lake house." Meanwhile, in the hotel ballroom, Glenn calmly addressed the stunned guests. "I apologize for the disruption. Please, enjoy the reception. The food shouldn't go to waste." He joined Detective Simpson and Art in a side room, where monitors showed traffic camera feeds. "They're heading north," Art reported. "Just like we predicted. All their obvious bolt holes are watched," Simpson added. "We have teams ready at each location." Glenn nodded. "They'll avoid them all. Sophia's not stupid, scared, but not stupid. She'll try something unexpected." He pulled out his phone, dialing Leonard. "Dad, I need you to contact Judge Morris. It's time to freeze all their accounts." In the fleeing car, Sophia's phone buzzed with notifications. Her face went white as she read them. "My accounts, they're all locked. Even the offshore ones." "Mine too," Danny confirmed, panic rising in his voice. "How did he get access?" "Those were under false names." "Because he's been playing us," Sophia realized, fury and fear warring in her voice. "All this time we thought we were the hunters." They switched cars twice, using vehicles Sophia's father had prepared months ago. But with each move, their options narrowed. Police vehicles appeared with increasing frequency, forcing them down specific routes. "They're hurting us," Sophia's father said grimly. "Each turn, we have fewer choices." Sophia's mind raced. Everything she'd planned, every detail she'd arranged, had been turned against her. The man she'd dismissed as a love-struck fool had orchestrated her complete destruction. Back at his office, Glenn reviewed the surveillance feeds with cold satisfaction. "How long until they run out of fuel?" "The car they're in has about half a tank," Art reported. "Maybe 2 hours at most." "Perfect." Glenn studied the map. "They'll head for the warehouse district. It's the only area with enough cover to hide a vehicle and access to the river." He turned to Detective Simpson. "Your teams are in position?" "At each exit point," she confirmed. "They can run, but they're just choosing which trap to fall into." Glenn's phone rang, Sophia's number. He put it on speaker. "Calling to surrender?" "You think you're so clever," she snarled. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Actually, I do." His voice remained calm. "I know about the insurance policy you took out on me, the offshore accounts, the other men you've ruined. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate once I discovered your true nature?" "I loved you once," she tried, switching tactics. "We could still—" "No," Glenn cut her off. "You loved what I could give you. And now I'm going to take everything from you, just like you planned to do to me." He ended the call and turned to Art. "Make sure that recording gets to the DA. Let's add attempted manipulation of a witness to the charges." Chapter 6. The Ruthless Game. Glenn sat in his office, surrounded by screens displaying surveillance feeds, financial records, and police reports. Over the past hours, he had systematically dismantled the lives Sophia and Danny had built on lies. "Their credit cards are dead," Art reported, hanging up his phone. "I've also contacted their other potential marks. Seems you weren't the first wealthy man they targeted." "But I'll be the last," Glenn stated, reviewing a document. "The DA's office is adding charges based on those other cases." Detective Simpson's team found quite a paper trail once they knew where to look. Leonard entered, carrying files. "I've spoken with the SEC. They're very interested in Danny's investment schemes. Turns out he's been running a side business defrauding clients. And Sophia's family? Marlene's hysterical, claiming she knew nothing. The country club has already revoked her membership. Leonard's smile held no warmth. Amazing how quickly the social climbers fall when their leverage disappears. Art's phone buzzed. They've abandoned the car. Trying to move on foot through the industrial district. Glenn checked the time. They'll be tired, desperate, starting to turn on each other. He stood, straightening his tie. Time to meet with Detective Simpson. At the police command center, Simpson greeted them with new information. We found their last vehicle. They took some supplies but left in a hurry. Blood in the back seat. Looks like they're fighting among themselves. Danny's work, Glenn surmised. He's realizing Sophia led him into a trap. He always was a survivor. He'll turn on her to save himself. Meanwhile, in an abandoned office building, the fugitives' alliance crumbled. This is your fault. Danny shoved Sophia. You said he was an easy mark. Just another rich fool we could bleed dry. Back off. Toby stepped between them, but Danny was beyond reason. Do you know what he's done? Danny's voice rose hysterically. My contacts won't touch me. My accounts are frozen. He's destroyed everything. Keep your voice down, Sophia's father hissed. They'll hear us. But Danny wasn't finished. I should turn myself in, tell them everything. Maybe they'll. The crack of Sophia's slap echoed through the room. You pathetic coward. After everything we've done, you want to give up? Look at us. Danny gestured wildly. Hiding in abandoned buildings, running from the police. This isn't what I signed up for. Then leave, Sophia spat. Go crawl to Glenn and beg for mercy. See how that works out for you. Glenn's voice played in Danny's head. I'm going to take everything from you. He'd seen the cold fury in the man's eyes at the wedding. There would be no mercy. In Glenn's office, Art reported their location. 5th floor of the Riverside complex. They're arguing. Seems the team's falling apart. Send in the tactical unit, Detective Simpson ordered. They're exhausted and emotional. Perfect time to move in. Not yet, Glenn countered. Let them stew a bit longer. The more they fight among themselves, the easier they'll be to break during questioning. Leonard studied his son with a mixture of pride and concern. You've thought of everything. They taught me an important lesson, Glenn replied. Trust should be earned, not given. And betrayal should be punished without mercy. The screen showed 4 desperate figures, once confident in their schemes, now reduced to hiding in darkness. Glenn had stripped away their money, their connections, their dignity. But he wasn't finished yet. Release the information about their other victims to the press, he instructed Art. Let's make sure they never find another mark, even if they somehow escape justice this time. Already done. Art confirmed. The story's breaking now. Their faces will be toxic in any social circle. Glenn nodded in satisfaction. Everything he'd built, they had tried to steal. Now he would show them the true meaning of ruthlessness, not through violence, but through the complete and systematic destruction of their lives. The night wore on, and the net drew tighter. Glenn watched through cameras as his enemies turned on each other, their dreams of wealth and power crumbling into accusations and fear. Soon, they would face justice, but more importantly, they would live with the knowledge that they had destroyed themselves by targeting the wrong man. You were right about one thing, Sophia, he murmured to the surveillance image. I'm not the man you thought I was. I'm much worse. Chapter 7. The Net Titans. Glenn Franklin's office had transformed into a command center. Multiple screens displayed surveillance feeds, financial records, and police reports. Art Lindsay worked at a nearby desk, coordinating with his network of informants. Danny's previous victims are coming forward, Art announced, reviewing new reports. 5 so far. Each case follows the same pattern. Wealthy mark, romantic entanglement, mysterious accidents. Glenn absorbed this information with cold satisfaction. Forward everything to Detective Simpson. I want these charges to stick. Leonard entered, carrying a thick file. I've traced Sophia's hidden accounts through 3 shell companies. She thought she was clever, using her mother's maiden name. Send it to the SE, Glenn instructed. Let's add tax evasion to their charges. The phone rang. Detective Simpson calling with an update. We've got movement. They tried to access a safety deposit box at First National. Missed them by minutes, but the bank's security footage is clear. They're getting sloppy, Glenn noted. Running out of resources? Down to their last options, Simpson confirmed. The brother, Toby, tried to use his credit card at a gas station. Declined, of course. They're burning through cash fast. In a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, Sophia paced their small room while Danny watched the parking lot for police. Their designer clothes were wrinkled, their polished appearances beginning to crack. He's hunting us like animals, Danny muttered. No money, no contacts, no way out. Shut up, Sophia snapped. If you hadn't been so obvious about meeting me. Me? Danny whirled on her. You're the one who couldn't wait to spend his money. Always pushing for the wedding date, demanding more expenses. Toby intervened before they could come to blows. Fighting won't help. We need a plan. Their father, once proud and commanding, sat defeated on the bed. What plan? Glenn has destroyed everything. My business contacts won't take my calls. Our accounts are frozen. Even Marlene's social circle has abandoned her. Because he's ruthless, Sophia spat. The perfect gentleman act was just that, an act. Underneath, he's a monster. No, her father corrected quietly. He's what we created. We tried to destroy him, and now he's returning the favor. Back at Glenn's office, Art received new intelligence. Danny's starting to crack. He made calls to 3 different lawyers, looking for deals. Let him squirm, Glenn replied. The longer they're trapped together, the more they'll tear each other apart. Leonard studied his son's impassive face. You knew they'd break under pressure. People like them always do. They're predators who think they're invincible until someone bigger comes along. Glenn's voice carried no emotion. I'm just proving I'm the apex predator. Detective Simpson arrived with fresh evidence. We found their previous safe house. Documents scattered everywhere. Looks like they left in a hurry. But we found something interesting. She laid out photographs. Plans for your accident. Very detailed plans. Glenn examined the documents. Add attempted murder to the charges. Make sure the D understands they weren't just after money. They're running out of places to hide, Simpson noted. The net's getting tighter. Good. Glenn's smile held no warmth. Time to spring the trap. Chapter 8. The Final Confrontation. The abandoned warehouse loomed against the night sky, its empty windows like vacant eyes. Glenn had chosen it carefully, remote enough for privacy, but close enough for quick police response. Art's team had spent weeks preparing it, making it appear neglected while installing state-of-the-art surveillance. They took the bait, Art reported, watching through cameras as a car approached. Anonymous tip about a safe house worked perfectly. Glenn straightened his tie. Detective Simpson's team's in position? All exits covered. They're not getting away this time. Inside the car, Sophia and her accomplices debated their next move. Their appearances had deteriorated further. Designer clothes replaced by whatever they could grab, their polished facades cracking under pressure. This doesn't feel right, Danny protested. It's too convenient. We don't have a choice, Sophia snapped. We're out of money, out of options. Unless you'd rather turn yourself in? They entered the warehouse cautiously, Toby leading with a flashlight. The space appeared abandoned, dust covering old machinery and crates. See? Sophia gestured around. Perfect hiding spot. We can regroup, figure out our next. The lights blazed on. Glenn stood on a metal walkway above them, looking down with cold amusement. Police officers emerged from hiding spots, weapons raised. Welcome to the end of your story, Glenn announced, his voice echoing. I thought you'd appreciate the dramatic setting. You bastard. Toby started forward but froze as laser sights appeared on his chest. Glenn descended the stairs with measured steps. I wanted you to understand something before you go to prison. You didn't fail because you chose the wrong target. You failed because you underestimated what a man will do when betrayed. We can make a deal, Danny broke in desperately. I know things, other schemes. Shut up, Sophia screamed, but Danny continued. She planned it all. The seduction, the wedding, your murder. It was all her idea. Glenn watched their unity crumble with satisfaction. Detective Simpson has all the evidence she needs. But please, continue turning on each other. It's entertaining. Sophia's composure finally shattered. You think you're so much better than us? You're worse. We just wanted money. You want to destroy people. No, Glenn corrected. I want justice. Everything I've done is legal. I just turned your own greed and corruption against you. Detective Simpson stepped forward. Sophia Hayes, Danny Connell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, money laundering. As the charges were read, Glenn watched his would-be killers transformed into common criminals. Sophia fought the handcuffs, screaming threats and accusations. Danny went quietly, already negotiating. Toby and his father surrendered with defeated resignation. How does it feel? Glenn asked Sophia as officers led her past. Watching your perfect plan collapse. Her response was a snarl of pure hatred, but Glenn saw the fear beneath it. She finally understood what she'd awakened in him. Not just revenge, but ruthless, calculated destruction. Chapter 9. Justice Served. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentences. Months had passed since the warehouse confrontation, each day revealing new depths to Sophia and Danny's crimes. Glenn sat in the gallery between Leonard and Art, his expression neutral as he watched his former fiancée and her accomplices face justice. Sophia had lost her polished appearance, prison orange replacing designer labels. Danny's charm had withered under the weight of evidence. The defendants have shown no remorse, the judge declared. Their pattern of predatory behavior, culminating in conspiracy to commit murder, demands severe punishment. Sophia Hayes, 25 years. Danny Connell, 20 years. In the prosecutor's office afterward, Detective Simpson shared the final tallies. With the other victims' cases, they're facing additional charges in 3 states. They'll never scheme again. What about Marlene? Art asked. Social ostracism is her punishment, Glenn replied. For someone like her, that's worse than prison. Later, in Glenn's office, Leonard poured drinks. To justice served. Glenn raised his glass but didn't drink. Justice is just the beginning. I'm implementing new background check procedures for my company. No one will ever get close enough to try this again. You've changed, Leonard observed. I had to. Glenn moved to the window, surveying the city he'd helped build. They showed me the world's true nature. Now I'm better prepared for it. Art joined them. Any regrets? Only that I didn't see through them sooner. Glenn's reflection showed a harder man than the one who'd fallen for Sophia's act. But the lesson was worth the price. The next morning, Glenn reviewed architectural plans for a new project. His company had grown stronger through the scandal, his reputation for integrity enhanced by his handling of the betrayal. A news alert caught his attention. Sophia attempting to appeal her sentence. The photo showed her in court, still beautiful but haunted. Glenn closed the alert without reading it. She was part of his past, a costly lesson in trust and consequences. Leonard found him working late that evening. The old Glenn would have been home hours ago. The old Glenn died when he read those text messages, his son replied. This version is stronger, smarter, ready for whatever comes next. They stood together, father and son, looking out at the city lights. Glenn had built his success on talent and hard work. Now he'd proven he could protect it with the same dedication. You know, Leonard said quietly, your mother would be proud. Not of the revenge, maybe, but of the strength you showed. Glenn nodded, thinking of the family values she'd instilled, loyalty, honesty, justice. He'd honored those values by refusing to let betrayal go unpunished. The final news reports aired that week. Sophia and Danny led away to separate prisons. Toby and his father accepting plea deals. Marlene selling her house, forced to downsize. The society columns that had once celebrated Glenn and Sophia's engagement now documented their spectacular fall. In his home office, Glenn archived the last of the evidence files. The recordings, photographs, and documents that had exposed their plot would remain as a reminder, not of pain or betrayal, but of his own capacity for ruthless efficiency when crossed. A new invitation arrived, another charity gala. Glenn smiled, remembering where he'd first met Sophia. He'd attend, but with clear eyes this time. No one would ever mistake his kindness for weakness again. The city stretched before him, full of opportunities and threats. Glenn Franklin was ready for both, transformed by betrayal into someone who could face any challenge. Not just a successful architect, but a man who had proven that crossing him was a fatal mistake. He had built his empire brick by brick. Now he had shown he could tear down his enemies with the same precision. The lesson would echo through their social circles for years. Glenn Franklin was not a man to be betrayed. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Franklin Architecture Group's new headquarters rose 40 stories into the city skyline, its glass and steel design a testament to power. Glenn Franklin stood in his top-floor office, now 39, his success evident in the expansion of his empire. The betrayal that had transformed him 5 years ago had also catalyzed his ambition. The Shanghai contract is finalized, his executive assistant reported. They want you to oversee the project personally. Glenn nodded, reviewing the documents. His company now operated internationally, with offices in major cities across 3 continents. The naive architect who'd once been targeted by gold diggers had become one of the most formidable figures in the industry. Schedule the meetings for next month, he instructed, and have security run complete background checks on all project leads. The assistant nodded, familiar with Glenn's rigorous protocols. After Sophia's betrayal, he'd implemented exhaustive screening procedures for anyone who came near his business or personal life. Trust was now something to be earned through extensive verification. Art Lindsay entered the office, their friendship stronger than ever. Now running the city's premier security and investigation firm, Art had parlayed his role in exposing Sophia's plot into a thriving business protecting other wealthy individuals from similar schemes. Just got word from my contact at the state pen, Art announced. Sophia's latest appeal was denied. She's serving her full sentence. Glenn barely glanced up from his work. And Danny? Still singing to the feds about other scams he knows about. Knocked a few years off his sentence, but he'll never work another con. Nobody in those circles will touch him now. The mention of his former fiancée brought no pain anymore. Sophia Hayes had become a cautionary tale in their social circles, the beautiful schemer who targeted the wrong man. Her attempt to destroy Glenn had instead destroyed her own world. Marlene's leaving town, Art continued, referring to Sophia's mother, lost the last of her social standing when the country club revoked her membership. She's moving to Florida, trying to rebuild in a new community. She won't succeed, Glenn stated flatly. I made sure her reputation followed her. No social circle will accept someone who helped plot a murder. Leonard Callahan visited later that day, now semi-retired but still sharp as ever. At 65, he took pride in his son's evolution from victim to victor. The charitable foundation's new wing opens next week, Leonard reminded him. Your mother would have loved seeing her name on a children's hospital. Glenn's philanthropy had grown alongside his business, but now it came with strict oversight. Each donation was scrutinized, each partnership vetted. He'd learned that even charity could be weaponized by the unscrupulous. Detective Simpson called, Leonard mentioned. She's making chief of police next month. Says your case changed her career. Showed her how the wealthy could be targeted by sophisticated predators. Susan Simpson had indeed risen through the ranks, her handling of the Hayes case establishing her expertise in white-collar crime. She now consulted with Glenn's security team, helping other potential victims identify and avoid similar schemes. In prison, Sophia's carefully maintained facade had crumbled completely. Her beauty, once her greatest weapon, faded under harsh fluorescent lights and rigid routines. Other inmates knew her story, the failed black widow whose target had proved more dangerous than she'd imagined. She received few visitors. Toby, her brother, had cut all ties after serving his own shorter sentence. Their father, broken by disgrace, lived quietly in a small apartment, surviving on a modest pension. The glamorous family that had once schemed to infiltrate high society now existed only in fading newspaper clippings. Danny Connell's cooperation with authorities had earned him a reduced sentence, but the price was high. Former associates shunned him as an informant. His charming persona, stripped away by years of incarceration, revealed the coward beneath. He spent his days looking over his shoulder, knowing his testimony had endangered him with dangerous people. Glenn's personal life had evolved as well. He dated occasionally, but with calculated caution. Each potential partner faced extensive background checks. His new girlfriend, Claire Mitchell, a successful surgeon, had passed these screenings and understood their necessity. Their relationship moved at a deliberate pace, built on verified trust rather than rushed emotion. "You've become the person they thought they were targeting," Art observed one evening over drinks. "Someone who can't be conned because he sees through every deception." "I became what I needed to be," Glenn replied. "This world preys on the trusting. I chose not to be prey." His company's success spoke to this transformation. The Franklin Architecture Group now specialized in secure facilities, banks, corporate headquarters, government buildings. Glenn's understanding of betrayal had given him insight into protecting against it. The society pages that had once breathlessly covered his engagement to Sophia now documented his rise as a business mogul. Profiles noted his intense focus, his attention to detail, his unwillingness to leave anything to chance. The words ruthless and calculating appeared frequently, meant as compliments in the cutthroat world of international business. Leonard watched his son's evolution with mixed emotions. Glenn's success was undeniable, his revenge complete. But the warm, trusting man he'd been had been replaced by someone harder, colder, more formidable. "Do you ever regret not just turning them in immediately?" Leonard asked once. "Taking the simpler route?" "No," Glenn answered without hesitation. "They needed to understand consequences. Real consequences, not just legal ones. They needed to feel what it's like to have their world destroyed by someone they underestimated." The lesson had resonated beyond Sophia and her accomplices. Glenn's revenge had become a warning story in wealthy circles, a reminder that not all victims stayed victims. Some transformed into something far more dangerous. Claire understood this aspect of him. As a trauma surgeon, she knew how near-death experiences changed people. She'd seen victims become survivors, survivors become warriors. Glenn's transformation followed this pattern, but with precision rather than violence. "You turned their weapons against them," she noted during dinner at his penthouse. "They tried to use social connections to destroy you. So you used those same connections to destroy them." "I learned from them," Glenn acknowledged. "How to identify weaknesses. How to exploit trust. How to dismantle someone's life piece by piece. I just proved better at it than they were." His new home reflected this evolution. State-of-the-art security systems protected against both physical and electronic intrusion. The warm, welcoming spaces Sophia had once decorated were replaced by minimalist design that emphasized power and control. Art's security firm now occupied several floors in Glenn's building. Their partnership had expanded, combining Art's investigative skills with Glenn's resources to protect others from sophisticated predators. "We've stopped 12 similar schemes this year," Art reported. "Amazing how many Sophias are out there, targeting wealthy marks." "Not so amazing," Glenn corrected. "Greed is constant. The only variable is whether the target becomes victim or victor." Detective Simpson's promotion ceremony drew the city's elite. Glenn attended, knowing his presence would remind everyone how he'd handled his own brush with criminality. His reputation now deterred potential schemers. No one wanted to risk becoming another Sophia Hayes. "Your case changed things," Simpson told him at the reception. "Made people realize these crimes aren't just about money. They're about destroying lives." "They certainly destroyed some lives," Glenn agreed, thinking of Sophia's family. Marlene's attempt to rebuild in Florida had failed spectacularly. Glenn's influence had reached even there, ensuring no social circle would risk accepting her. Toby, released after 3 years, worked a retail job under his mother's maiden name. His hot temper had cooled in prison, replaced by wary resignation. He'd learned the hard way that loyalty to family could be a fatal weakness. Their father lived like a ghost in his small apartment, the formerly proud man reduced to shopping at discount stores and avoiding old acquaintances. His business contacts had evaporated, his social standing annihilated. Glenn's revenge had been comprehensive, targeting not just the main conspirators, but everyone who'd enabled them. Claire accompanied Glenn to charity events, understanding his need to maintain social appearances while keeping everyone at a calculated distance. She'd seen the newspaper articles about Sophia's trial, understood how completely Glenn had destroyed his would-be destroyers. "You never talk about her," Claire observed one night. Nothing to talk about, Glenn replied. She was a mistake I corrected. Thoroughly. The thoroughness of that correction became apparent when Sophia's first parole hearing approached. Glenn's influence ensured the board received detailed documentation of her crimes, including the murder plot. Parole was denied. She would serve her full sentence. Danny, despite his cooperation, faced similar obstacles. His testimony had earned him a shorter sentence, but no real freedom. Former associates watched him constantly, waiting to punish his betrayal. He lived in fear, knowing his protection from Glenn's revenge had cost him protection from his former criminal connections. The Franklin Architecture Group continued its expansion. Glenn's new projects emphasized security and control, reflecting their creator's evolution. His buildings rose like fortresses of glass and steel, beautiful but impenetrable. You've built an empire on other people's fear, Leonard observed during their weekly dinner. I built it on understanding human nature, Glenn corrected. People respect strength and ruthlessness. They mistake kindness for weakness. I stopped being kind. This philosophy pervaded every aspect of his life. Employees underwent rigorous screening. Business partners faced extensive background checks. Even charitable donations came with strict conditions and oversight. The transformation that had begun with betrayal was now complete. Glenn Franklin had become someone who could never be victimized because he controlled every situation, anticipated every deception, and responded to any threat with overwhelming force. Sophia's cautionary tale lived on in whispered conversations at society events. She'd targeted a wealthy man's money but had instead awakened something far more dangerous: his capacity for calculated, ruthless revenge. Her punishment served as a warning to others who might attempt similar schemes. Glenn's new office overlooked the city he'd helped build, its skyline dotted with his designs. Each building represented not just architectural achievement but a statement of power. He had transcended the role of victim to become something his enemies had never imagined. A man who could destroy lives without breaking laws, who could exact revenge through influence rather than violence. Was it worth it? Claire asked him once. Becoming this version of yourself? Glenn considered the question, looking out at his empire of glass and steel. They thought they were destroying me, he said finally. Instead, they created someone stronger. Someone who understands that trust must be earned, verified, and constantly monitored. Someone who never forgives betrayal. The city lights reflected in the window, casting his reflection back at him. The naive architect who'd once fallen for a beautiful schemer had become someone else entirely, a man whose very name made potential predators think twice. The price of this transformation had been his innocence, but the result was undeniable. Glenn Franklin had not just survived betrayal. He had transformed it into the foundation of an empire built on the understanding that in this world, trust was a weapon, mercy was weakness, and revenge, properly executed, was an art form. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.